78%. That's the number that changed how I read faces. A longitudinal imaging study tracked facial tissue descent over 11 years. And when they separated what was happening in the skin from what was happening in the structures underneath, the finding was stark. 78% of the measurable descent, the dropping of the midface, the deepening of the folds, the flattening of the cheekbones, came from changes in the deep scaffolding, not the skin itself. The skin was following. Something underneath was letting go. I want you to try something right now, wherever you are. If you can, take your shoes off. Curl your toes into the floor, all 10 of them, as hard as you can. Press them down like you're trying to grip the earth through the carpet. Hold that for a few seconds and pay attention to what happens above the foot. Feel the tension climb up through your inner arch, into the inner calf, and, if you're gripping hard enough, into the inner thigh. That line of tension you just felt has a name. It's called the deep front line. And it doesn't stop at your thigh. It runs all the way to your face. The question this raises is uncomfortable. If 78% of facial descent is structural, and if there's a continuous fascial chain connecting your toes to the scaffolding around your cheekbones, then is it possible that part of what we've been calling aging is something else entirely? Is it possible that your face is falling, in part, because your feet went quiet? Let me walk you through what this line actually is, because the anatomy matters here, and I don't want to simplify it past the point of usefulness. The deep front line is a concept mapped extensively by Thomas Myers in his Anatomy Trains work, but it's grounded in dissection evidence that predates his framework by decades. The line begins with the deep toe flexors, flexor hallucis longus and flexor digitorum longus, the muscles responsible for that gripping action you just performed. These muscles originate on the posterior tibia and fibula, and their tendons pass beneath the medial malleolus, that bony knob on the inside of your ankle, before reaching the toes. They share fascial continuity with tibialis posterior, the deepest muscle of the calf, which is the primary stabilizer of the medial arch of the foot. From tibialis posterior, the fascial continuity travels upward along the inner leg. The deep posterior compartment of the calf connects through shared fascial planes to the popliteal fascia behind the knee, and from there to the adductor group on the inner thigh. The adductors don't simply attach to the femur and stop. Their fascial investment blends with the fascia of the pelvic floor, specifically the obturator internus and the levator ani. This is a critical junction. The pelvic floor is not an isolated hammock. It's a relay point in a continuous tensional network. Above the pelvic floor, the deep front line continues through the psoas major, a muscle most people associate with hip flexion, but which actually spans from the lumbar vertebrae to the lesser trochanter of the femur, bridging the pelvis entirely. The psoas shares fascial continuity with the diaphragm. Dr. Carla Stecco's cadaveric dissection work at the University of Padua has demonstrated this continuity in remarkable detail. Her team showed that the fascia investing the psoas is not separate from the fascia investing the diaphragmatic crura. They are continuous tissue. When one moves, the other responds. Above the diaphragm, the line continues through the mediastinum, the central compartment of the chest, via the endothoracic fascia, and reaches the anterior neck through the scalenes and longus colli. These deep anterior neck muscles attach to the cervical vertebrae and the first two ribs, and their fascial continuity extends to the suprahyoid and infrahyoid muscles, the muscles that control the position of the hyoid bone, the only bone in the body that doesn't articulate with another bone. The hyoid is suspended entirely by muscular and fascial tension, and the hyoid's position directly influences the tension in the muscles of mastication and the fascial planes that support the zygomatic complex, your cheekbones. Jean-Pierre Barral's research on visceral and fascial mechanical transmission has provided additional evidence for this continuity. His work demonstrated that mechanical force applied at one point in a fascial plane can be measured at distant points along the same plane with remarkably little attenuation over distances that surprise his research team. The fascia isn't just wrapping, it's transmitting. So when you gripped the floor with your toes a minute ago, The tension you generated didn't stop at your calf. It entered a continuous tensional network that, if the line is adequately maintained, reaches the structures supporting your midface. The question is no longer whether the connection exists. The dissection evidence is clear. The question is what happens when the bottom of that line goes dormant. And this is where something interesting emerges from looking across cultures, because not every population has abandoned the toe grip. In Okinawa, researchers studying the island's remarkable concentration of centenarians have documented something that gets less attention than their diet. Okinawan elders traditionally sit on the floor. They rise from the floor without hand assistance well into their 90s. The biomechanical demands of this daily practice, the deep squat, the toe engagement, the full range ankle dorsiflexion, maintain toe flexor strength in deep frontline tension at levels dramatically higher than age-matched Western populations. Their feet remain active participants in their posture. The grip never goes silent. In the classical dance traditions of South India, Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi, the foundational position is Aramandi, a deep plie performed barefoot with the toes spread wide and gripping the floor. Dancers maintain this practice for decades, performing well into their 60s and 70s in many cases. The toe-to-floor relationship isn't incidental to the art form, it's structural. The ascending tension from the foot engagement creates the upright carriage and lifted facial posture that audiences recognize as the dancer's bearing. Nobody taught these dancers about the deep front line. Their tradition encoded the principles centuries before anyone named the anatomy. Contrast this with the modern Western foot. The average American adult spends over 12 hours per day in shoes. The typical shoe has a rigid sole that prevents toe flexion, an elevated heel that shortens the posterior chain, and a narrow toe box that prevents the splay needed for effective gripping. The foot, which contains 26 bones, 33 joints, and over 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments, is essentially immobilized for most of waking life. The toe flexors atrophy, the arch collapses gradually, and the bottom anchor of the deep front line goes slack. I find myself wanting to be careful about how I frame what comes next, because the temptation is to say that every face that changes with age is changing because of the feet. That's not what the evidence supports. Skin changes are real. Bone resorption in the maxilla is real. Fat pad redistribution is real. These are genuine components of facial aging. What I am saying, and the anatomical and biomechanical evidence supports this specifically, is that there is a structural fascial component to midface descent that is modifiable, and that component begins at the feet. Dermatology addresses the skin. Surgery addresses the fat pads and bone. Nobody is addressing the fascial architecture that connects the foundation to the facade. The reasonable challenge to this position is distance. Feet and face are separated by the entire length of the body. Can mechanical tension genuinely transmit across that span? Robert Schleip's research group at Ulm University has addressed this directly. Using ultrasound imaging and force measurement, Schleip's team demonstrated that fascial tissue transmits mechanical force along its fiber direction with significantly less attenuation than previously assumed. The force doesn't travel through empty space. It travels through a continuous collagenous matrix, the same way tension travels along a rope regardless of the rope's length. The relevant variable isn't distance, it's continuity. And the deep front line's continuity from toe flexors to zygomatic scaffolding has been confirmed in dissection. So let me stake a position clearly. A meaningful portion of what we attribute to inevitable facial aging is a postural fascial event. It begins when the foot loses its grip on the ground. The deep front line slackens from the bottom up. The pelvic floor loses a portion of its tensional support. The diaphragm's fascial connections operate with less pre-tension. The anterior neck muscles lose their inferior pull, and the scaffolding that holds the midface, the cheekbones, the nasolabial complex, the jawline, gradually descends. Not because of gravity acting on skin, because of a structural chain losing its tension from the ground. This is not a peripheral observation. This reframes the entire conversation about facial aging for anyone over 40. It means that the mirror isn't only showing you time, it's showing you the accumulated consequence of your feet being imprisoned in rigid boxes for decades. And it means that a portion of what you see, not all of it, but a real and measurable portion, is responsive to something you can do starting today. Here's what to stop doing first. Stop spending your entire day in shoes with rigid soles and elevated heels. I'm not suggesting you go barefoot on city streets. I'm saying that every hour you spend indoors in rigid footwear is an hour your toe flexors are dormant and the deep front line is slackening. Switch to minimal footwear at home. Thin-soled, flat, wide toe box, or go barefoot on safe surfaces. The foot needs to feel the ground to grip it. Stop sitting with your feet flat and passive under a desk for hours at a stretch. The toe flexors have no reason to engage when your feet are parked on a flat surface bearing no responsive load. Every 30 minutes, curl your toes into the floor and hold for 10 seconds. You won't look weird. Nobody will notice. Your deep front line will notice. Stop treating your feet as transportation devices that exist below your awareness. They are the foundation of your entire fascial architecture. Ignoring them is ignoring the base of the structure and then wondering why the top is shifting. Now, the protocol itself. This is the 45-second toe grip, and it's specific enough that you can start it tonight. Stand barefoot on a firm surface. Not carpet if you can help it. A wood or tile floor gives better feedback. Stand with your feet hip-width apart, weight distributed evenly. Now curl all 10 toes into the floor as forcefully as you can. Not the ankle, isolate the toe flexors. You should feel the arch of the foot rise as the toes grip down. The contraction should be intense enough that you feel it in the deep calf traveling up the inner leg. Hold this maximal grip for 45 seconds, then release completely for 15 seconds. Repeat this 3 times. That's 1 set. Do 1 set in the morning and 1 in the evening. What you're doing is waking the bottom anchor of the deep front line. The 45-second hold is long enough to create a sustained tensional demand that the fascial network registers and responds to. Shorter holds don't produce the same fascial adaptation. The 15-second rest prevents cramping without losing the accumulated engagement. What you should feel during the first week. Significant fatigue in the deep toe flexors and inner calf. The muscles are weak from disuse and they will protest. Some people feel the engagement travel as high as the inner thigh or the pelvic floor by the end of the first week. What you should feel over 2 to 3 weeks. Improved arch height during standing, a subtle shift in how you carry your pelvis, and if you're paying attention, a sense that your posture is organizing differently from the ground up. The facial changes are slower. Fascial remodeling operates on a timeline of weeks to months, not days. Don't look for them. Let them arrive the way they arrive, gradually, and then all at once when someone asks if you've been sleeping better. What to avoid? Gripping with the ankle instead of the toes. If your ankle is rolling inward during the grip, you're recruiting tibialis posterior without adequately engaging the toe flexors. The correction is simple. Focus on pressing the toe pads into the floor rather than curling the foot. The toes should be doing the work. The ankle stays neutral. There's a generation of children growing up right now who will spend more hours in rigid footwear than any generation in human history. They'll sit in chairs at school from age 5, wear cushioned sneakers that prevent every natural foot response, and arrive at 40 wondering why their bodies feel disconnected and their faces look tired. They'll spend money on serums and procedures that address the surface while the structural foundation continues to slacken underneath. Nobody will tell them about the deep front line. Nobody will connect their feet to their face. Unless someone who understands the connection says something. That's not a burden. That's an inheritance worth passing along. Your grandchild who watches you move differently and asks why. Your friend who notices something shifted in your carriage and wants to know what you changed. The person at the pharmacy counter buying another cream who might benefit from hearing that the scaffolding under the skin responds to what the feet are doing. That there's an architecture to the face that starts at the floor. Next time you look in a mirror and see the midface beginning to descend, look at your feet. Feel whether they're gripping anything. Ask whether the bottom of your structure is still engaged or whether it went quiet years ago and nobody mentioned it. Because 78% of what you're seeing may not be time pulling your face down. It may be your foundation letting go. Your feet remember how